You've got public paths.
That attracted me, that to be about.
Absolutely. No traffic. It's not bad. Anyway, my name is Roger Horton. I'm Vice Chairman of the HOA at Pinnacle at Wesley Chapel. I'm here speaking on behalf of the people here. And our board member, Tony Buslia, is here also. What I'm here to speak about, and I know one of the things I think is on your agenda tonight is the conservation subdivision. And there is a subdivision going in or being proposed next to our subdivision. And we already have quite a few members that live in our development have brought it up to us that they're having a hard time getting in and out of the development. And the traffic, I know speed limit's 45. Trying to get people to do it. The sheriff, I know, it's hard for them to keep up with that and enforce it. And I did notice the other day riding to Weddington that they do have a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit before you get to the roundabout at 16. And the request that we're making is, and I've spoken to Bjorn at the county planning, used to work for the county planning. So the county planner about transportation in here told me about the roundabouts, the two roundabouts that will be going in. That'll be great. I know we've got the school there, and I know we've got the new subdivision going in. And it would be good if there could be a study of some type looked at the possibility of 35-mile-per-hour speed limit somewhere through here to slow something down, because they're not.
We actually recently did a speed study on this section of 84. I live in Price Mill, so I also have trouble getting out of my neighborhood. We did a speed study, and I can find out when it was and see what their threshold is for doing another one.
And
I'm happy to do that.
Depending on when that was and with new development that's gone in.
Yeah, I think it was either 21 or 22, I think.
Okay.
So I can see what their threshold is,
Yeah.
like what their time frame is from requesting another one.
And I'm making that question. I know it's on 84, it's the highway, but I also looked at it, it's like I was on the board, and when I saw it in Weddington, I thought, and I've seen the traffic back up and get worse and worse. So it's just a request. It was a high priority with residents in our neighborhood, and I do know one of them has had an accident there.
Do you have any problems with sight distance? Being able to see?
The sight distance is they would keep the speed limit, probably, but they don't.
Right.
Instead of 45, it's more like 55. So if you take it down to 35, it might be 45.
Well, the rule of thumb is you take the speed limit and you add a zero. So if it's 35, you have to be able to see 350 feet in both directions.
Yeah.
If it's 45, you have to be able to see 450 feet
Yeah.
in each direction.
Well, DOT, I know DOT wouldn't approve the driveway permit or access if it didn't have the sight distance. They would have made a move. One thing I would be curious about is the sight distance for the new subdivision going in, because the curve coming from here towards our development is probably the worst.
It may be a right in, right out.
And we probably won't know that till they get their plans more
Yeah.
cemented.
But the typical, if that is an issue, is they will make it a right in,
Yeah.
right out only subdivision.
Right. I'm just here if you do have that study, it would be great to let us know.
What is your email, Mr. Horton?
It's Roger D. Horton, the number 1, at gmail.com.
Okay. I'll find the last date of that speed study and reach out to the DOT guy. And
just more history. We've just recently taken over, and we're still in the process, but taken over from Taylor Morrison, the builder. And we're in the process of taking over. Everything we can do to help us hold the money if we need to. They've been good to work with. And we're getting the ponds. We still haven't got the streets taken over yet, but we know it's a lot of DOTs got their hands full. Lack of personnel, but we're getting there. But I just wanted to be aware of that and to present that for our residents.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Happy to reach out to them.
Okay.
And I'll keep you posted.
No. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Is Vaughn supposed to be here tonight?
No, Vaughn had that conflicting meeting tonight. Okay, so that brings us to the approving our minutes from our June 12th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Love it. And then our 25th anniversary village celebration update. For those of you new in the audience, we are having our 25th anniversary celebration on Saturday from 10 to 2 at Dogwood Park. We'd love to have you join us. It should be a good time. But I'll turn it over to Deb.
Thank you. All memorabilia has arrived. We've got cups and pins and snap bracelets for the kids, so they'll be given out during the event. The weather is supposed to be 95 degrees, possible thunderstorms in the afternoon. I worked with John and we ordered these, 3 of these mist fans. We're going to have a misting section under the trees, and people can cool off, and they work. They're amazing. And I have 4. 1 belongs to me that I purchased, and then 3 belongs to the town. So we will have a good representation there to keep cool. We're still having some difficulty getting the banners hung. I'm just not sure that's going to happen. Here are the banners, just to refresh your memory. This is what I was trying to achieve at Mineral Springs, and ours would look something like that. It's not finished yet, but anyway, I've gone through Union Power, Duke Power, the Department of Transportation, and Department of Transportation said that the only way they would be able to let us do it is if it was some sort of special thing that's temporary. So anyway, I said, whatever, do it. You know, if it's going to be temporary, I want to get the banners up. Of course, temporary for me might be a little bit longer than their temporary, but heck. So anyway, but everything else looks good. One of our trees, tree number 16, looks like it might not be doing well, but we're looking at possibly. It's not sponsored, so that's good. And we have, I think, 16 or 17 trees have been sponsored. So we're doing really good there.
16 or 17 out of how many?
25.
Okay. That's right. It's our 25th anniversary.
Yeah. And I think that was everything. I tried to make it short and sweet to the point. Anyway, the DOT thing is, she's going to try to get special permission for us to do it on their poles. I wanted to do it on the walk, don't walk poles. Because they're like at 4 intersections, and I've got 4 that I'm trying to purchase that I budgeted for. So anyway, that's it. Any question?
Do you feel like that they'll be able to have them up and hung
Even
before
if
Saturday?
Probably not, but even if they don't, I've talked to Matt Rory, he's the guy that does them, and he's ready to go. But you know what? Even if they don't get them by Saturday, they'll get them. If we get them, it still will say 25th anniversary, 25 years strong or something like that. So, we may not be able to get, but it's just government, red tape. I've been working on it for months and been having a hard time.
And people say we're slow.
Yeah, really. But anyway, I don't know that we will, but, whatever. As long as we get them up, they'll still be pretty on the 16th.
Matt Rory is with DOT?
Mm-hmm. No, Matt Rory is the guy from Sign. He's the one that.
Okay. So he's just furnishing the signs. Someone else is doing.
Amelia Adams is the person from Division 10. She's with the North Carolina Department. She's the one that's working with me. She's going to try to get, a special. I can't remember exactly the name. Temporary encroachment. That's the word. She's going to try to get an encroachment, but it would be temporary. But anyway, that's who I've been working with on that.
Okay. Any questions for Deb?
Oh, I got all kinds of questions too. I'm on a roll.
Okay.
I'm trying to stretch this out to midnight.
You go, Dad.
Do we have any kind of ceremony planned or anything for the trees that have been sponsored?
I wanted to have a commemorative ceremony. I'm waiting for the plaques. I've ordered 10, and so they will go in. Tree number 1 is for the village. That's ours, and I was hoping to have like a little commemorative ceremony with the mayor. The mayor will be speaking at the 25th celebration, addressing the crowd.
Okay.
Huh?
And singing.
And singing, yeah, and dancing.
No.
We'll do a duet. So yeah, but other than that, we just got to get everything together. And I wasn't necessarily, because there's going to be such kind of craziness and so many people coming around and going, I thought it might be better not to have the commemorative ceremony for the trees at the same time as the 25th. But that's just my opinion. If you guys don't agree, I'm cool with whatever you want to do. Hopefully we'll get those plaques in.
Okay.
So, they have been ordered. They were ordered a week ago. So.
Okay.
Maybe we should wait so on Saturday we could continue to try to sell the sponsorships
Hey,
to
I like it. That's
people
a good
who
idea.
are.
That's a good idea.
You know, we have 7 trees up for sale. Would you like to sponsor one for your?
Whoever. Okay. Maybe you could make that announcement.
Absolutely.
I'd be happy to if you know,
Sure.
but we could make that announcement at the thing when we're talking.
And what time
More
will
than
you be speaking?
more than one time, too.
Noon.
Noon. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Multiple announcements throughout the day would be good. And, I'm asking John if he'll write a song about the 25th. No? Darn.
He's a bass player.
Anything else?
That's all I've got.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we hope to see y'all on Saturday from 10 to 2. That brings us to our finance officer report.
Okay. We closed out this past year, 22-23. We are still in the process. I'm in the process of adjusting earning entries to close them out. There are several things we have to do. I also have some income to pull back, and we're still looking for income that we haven't received yet. So once I get that information, the reports that I did submit to you were just your standard closing month-end reports, your month-end reports. So when I have those finalized, then we'll bring them back. But until then, we'll start on the new monthly report. We have to have our books closed, I think, and audited, I think, by October 15th. That's all I have.
Any questions for Catherine?
Sure. Yeah, I'm on a roll.
You really are.
The miscellaneous receivables of $75.60. What is that,
I
Kathy?
have to look into that miscellaneous receivables.
On the balance sheet.
Yeah, let me look into that. I don't know offhand.
Okay.
Let me write it down. I don't like to use miscellaneous receivables. So. I was always taught that's a red flag for on here. So.
Agreed.
And it was $74.
No, $7,560.
Thank you.
Okay. So Kathy will look into that question. Do we have any more questions for Kathy? All right. So that brings us to our Parks and Rec report. Our wonderful chair would approach.
Good evening, sir.
Hello, everyone. Not too much to report. We didn't have a quorum, so we didn't have a meeting. But basically, I just wanted to give everybody the heads up. Our Eagle Scout Logan Lewis finished the Butterfly Mall around April 24th. So thanks again to John for being on hand to kind of shepherd them along, and it looks like he was able to wrangle some of the Weddington football team out of the gym and over to lift.
That's some big dudes.
Thanks also to Frank Capella for donating the mortar.
Yes. So that's done. Congratulations to Logan. Quick, we've got our upcoming Summer Jam event on August 5th. Going to have a great musician, great band there. And Apostle Q, Sling Dogs, and Snowball Cabin are our food providers. And because we didn't have a meeting, we're basically working with Amy, double checking everything's on track. Bounce House and all those other things are scheduled and ready to go. And the other thing is, Gordon Oliver, our committee member, agreed to take on the bird dog action item. He had done a lot of research, and he was going to present to us at the committee meeting, and so I said, you know, why don't you come to the council meeting? And he wasn't able to make it tonight, so I don't really have an update on that, but I know he's done quite a bit of work on it, so.
What is the bird dog?
That's the alternative to
Security.
Traffic.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So we had given him the outline from the attorney and
Well,
wanted to see how.
but so far we have all of our spots filled for Saturday, so that's
Yes,
good.
Saturday.
Actually have extra.
Which according to Brandon, it's not extra. It's going to be a hot day for them to put that traffic across that road, wearing all that gear.
Maybe we'll put one of the misters in the road.
Maybe we might need to because it's going to be hot. That asphalt's going to be really hot.
That's pretty much it. Does anyone have any questions for me?
After the 25th anniversary, the next park event is the back to school in August.
August 5th, yes.
I mean that's going to be here before we know it, right?
4th of July, where are you?
Right? July 10th.
10th of July.
Thank you, Pam. I will be there with bells on.
All right.
Now, do we have a Parks and Rec meeting before then, though, right?
27th.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. We were going to try to do a special meeting, but in order to get the notification out and everything, that put us up at like the 20th. So we just said.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Pat. That brings us to the planning board report. Vaughn had a conflicting meeting tonight, so he had to attend that. The planning board meeting update. Lori is not here to give a motion. You want to speak, Sherry?
I should have brought my agenda if I was known. I mean, we did a lot on the conservation subdivision. We had a guest speaker. It went quite long. Quite a bit of discussion. So we sent it on to council. I hope council understands the repercussion of some of our folks in town, and knowing that what the conservation subdivision is doing to our 1 acre per home. So that was part of the discussion that we had. But we voted on it and sent it on to you guys. So, I mean, that's where we kind of are. I think that was mostly, although the gentleman that spoke was very informative with the forestry, there were some things information that was provided that I felt was a little incorrect. So just know that. I mean, some of us have been here a while. But it was, again, it was all forwarded on, so
Okay.
you guys have that.
All right, and we'll get it for our August meeting, guys.
Yep.
The foresters can speak with us about it.
No, we're going to get the recommendations
Oh.
back on the conservation subdivision, and I guess they're perhaps disagreements with what the urban forester said.
Just pieces that were represented that were factually not completely correct.
Okay.
Then, based upon that, Sherry, would it be wise for us to call for the public hearing on the conservation subdivisions next month? Or should we get feedback from you guys before we do that?
There's a wide depth of perception, I don't know if that's the right word, there's a wide level of people that have been here longer than others within the planning board. So I don't quite know if it will change the outcome from what was presented and what was voted on and what you guys have. Just for someone that's been here a long time, I'm just presenting, since I have the opportunity, that there was some concern. And I think that other residents, when they find out about the conservation subdivision scenario, will be rather upset.
So maybe we could call for it and give people a chance to start speaking and then continue it to September we don't have to make a decision.
Right.
But they give people more than one meeting to try to come and,
I was gonna say, during summer.
yeah,
And
it's hard.
Again, how much engagement there is anyhow.
Mhm.
So, but I'm just gonna say, we're gonna go through, I think, a little bit of what Weddington is going through now with their conservation subdivision stuff. And they're really vocal. I mean, I don't know how vocal it will be with us. But they're just alone, my people in my neighborhood, that backs up to what is potentially going to be that conservation subdivision.
Well, we have seen, even tonight, things come to fruition that we had concerns about. Like when the Pinnacle was approved, how many of us stood up here and said, you can't see when you pull out of that driveway?
Right.
And it came true. So concerns about conservation subdivision, we should maybe give people more than one meeting to come and speak.
Yeah.
Do you guys know the main reason for us wanting to be smaller lot sizes? I mean, my personal...
Right, but the question that we have, and I don't know if this is the right format for me to be able to speak to this, but the question that we have is like, in the case of this subdivision, right? It's going to be it's been obliterated already. And we know that that's just a fact. We can't get around the fact that it's already been obliterated and that the people that do it know the deal. And it takes 3 years for them to get their approvals anyhow. So why would they not strip it bare? How truly effective is a conservation subdivision? And then there was great discussion on front load versus side load. What type of parking is available for cars? How then the forestry gentleman was talking about like how many trees he wants per lot. When you get a lot that's too small, you ain't got a whole lot of space. You're talking small trees. You're talking cherries. You're not talking big, beautiful willows. So it's just you got to look at really what you're going to get. I mean, and we're not even touching the whole septic field and the challenges that might be coming from the state anyhow and changing all that and how you would manage that aspect of it. We added the sign in the beginning of a conservation subdivision so that people would actually know why there are smaller lots. Two houses per acre is a big change from one per acre. I just don't know. And people came here, a lot of them came for one house per acre. But again, people also have moved here from a much smaller lot than what they had prior. So there's a bunch of different things going into the whole thing. I guess my perspective, and this is not the biggest up there, was truly how effective it will be based on what happens in reality.
We have clear cutting in our policies of things against clear cutting. I mean, we've incorporated that. This land down here beside Pinnacle was a tree farm, I was told.
It was not registered with the county. It was not registered in the forestry program.
Right. So there's all different ways to get around it.
Okay. We'll look into that. My thing was incentive. I really want to preserve land. I want to preserve forest. And if you don't give developers incentives, they're not gonna do it. They're not gonna try to preserve the land. I was just trying to give them incentives. I mean, it's the same amount of land. It's just the houses are crammed in the middle, but the same amount of land is there with the forest around it or with land that's been preserved. And that's why I wanted to go less than,
I completely understand.
Yeah.
The thought and methodology is great there. Reality, I'm not so sure it's.
Well, if we were told it was a tree farm, and if it's not, then we need to come up with our guidelines, because we have guidelines about clear cutting land and then trying to develop it. We did that a couple of years ago, so that will definitely impact.
It's been about 3 years.
Yeah.
Before they ever touch ground, it will be 3 years. So, You know, that's what I'm saying. By the time they have to go through all the steps and that they have to go through, you know, it's going to be 3 years pretty much. So they can clear cut and not really see repercussion.
No.
Well, it's from the time they ask for a plan. It's not from the time they clear cut.
But
right?
I don't think we have a formal submittal.
Just waiting out.
Well, I think they're waiting out the sewer water situation.
Right. I mean, there's just a bunch of things that the developers are so far savvier that we just can't even keep up. And I'm not saying we don't try, but there are so many loopholes. Oh, sorry. Ask for forgiveness later. I mean,
I know. It's
you know, and again, it goes to
absolutely.
what trees do we want on, you know, the other component was how much lawn was going to be available, how deep it was going to be. You know, there was all that discussion. But again, you're going to get smaller trees on those lots. You know, you're going to get some, like your crab apples, your crepe myrtle. I'm not saying they're all not valid and whatever, but if you're looking for big stately trees, you know, you can't really fit them on a half-acre lot.
Well, I know I'm sorry. I know this has been in y'all's lap for quite a while, and you guys have spent an enormous amount of time on it. What's the possibilities of having possibly, I mean, I know we can't have a quorum, but have representation from the planning board to sort of share more of what
Right.
you guys have talked about prior to the public hearing next month, or as a part of the public hearing.
And understand that I'm falling off, okay? So I don't, and there's people that don't have, so I don't think that, I mean, certainly hear the concerns, but they won't be as vocal as I am right now.
Question. With the size and complexity of this issue, would it make more sense to have a joint council planning board meeting where
Thought
everyone
about
is given the opportunity on both sides to speak? I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think a special meeting would be a good idea.
Because I don't want something like this to be whoever's not on the winning side to say, well, it was skewed this way or it was skewed that way. I want everyone to have the opportunity to say, I gave my opinion and it was heard.
Yeah, we may have misinformation. Obviously, I did. I was told that was a tree farm.
It was not registered because I checked when they started clear cutting. Well, how about this? Let's have Vaughn present. We don't have to call the public hearing if you don't want to. Vaughn can still keep this on the agenda for council. And between now and then, we'll try to see if we can find a joint meeting date, or even if we just do. Will y'all be in town? Planning board is the 24th.
Are you talking about us? What are you talking about?
Us right here. Because we could announce that there's a quorum of council going to be at the planning board meeting, right? And not have a joint meeting?
Well, the question is, would the council be able to make a motion at a planning board meeting versus...
I was just trying to do it quickly.
No, either way.
Because we still have to have a public hearing. We can't change it without a public hearing.
Something that I was going to bring up later, but since we're talking about it, when I was on planning board, we talked about, you remember, us going to tour and study a conservation subdivision. I still want to do that. I still would like to go. I mean, besides Price Mill where we live, you know, I haven't seen one, and I'd like to go and talk with someone and see what the pros and cons and stuff like that, because seeing it is much better than just listening to someone talk about it. So that is something I was going to suggest.
A good one. I mean, one that's not, you know, we want to look at something that's the model, not just a conservation subdivision.
So how about this, council? Mark your calendars if you can come on the 24th.
Okay.
We'll have Kathy publish a quorum of council at planning board. I think we should still call for the public hearing to start in August, because if we want to allow a couple months, that's at least 1 month to start.
With the understanding we wouldn't be making any kind of formal recommendation or vote after the first meeting.
I mean, we could say that, but we can't promise it, I don't think. but we can say.
So Mayor Fuller, are you saying that you want Vaughn to present at the next meeting, in between now and then you want to have a public hearing? Your public hearing is being called for the August meeting.
I think we call if council's okay with it, I would like you to publish a potential quorum at the planning board meeting. So Vaughn could represent, or Vaughn could summarize with planning board, and we could hear the planning board opinions from their own mouths, and then we'll still call for the hearing tonight to start in August, and we can continue it if we need be to have more time for residents to share their thoughts.
That latter part's okay, but on the first part, just to be clear, that's would be an official meeting, so it needs to be noticed like an official meeting of the council.
So it couldn't just be a quorum.
Right. It's not like it's not like you're attending the DOT presentation and you might all be there. That's something where you likely are going to participate.
What
That's
about
why I asked the
participation
question.
being the key? If you're going to sit there quietly, listen, and talk, and not say a word, that's not like me.
Yeah. Even then, though, I would still probably do it just to be on the safe side.
What's the difference between that and a work session, like we've had before?
I wonder, what does Vaughn have on your agenda for?
We don't get it until very close to.
Because if Vaughn didn't have a lot on the agenda for September, we could do a joint meeting. If y'all can be there.
Yeah.
But I think there should be a protocol maybe where.
You're talking about a joint meeting at the planning board meeting, or
Yeah.
Either way, you got it. I mean,
Because they'll already be here, so we won't
either
inconvenience
way,
them.
however you do it, if you're going to be there in any kind of capacity as council members for what may or may not be a joint meeting you participate in,
All right.
no, it just needs to be noticed properly as a meeting.
All right, so we'll
Same
just say it's a
thing.
joint meeting. So we need to follow, Kathy, whatever procedures we need to do to call a joint meeting at the regularly scheduled planning board meeting on July 24th at 7.
To your question, work sessions are meetings too.
Okay, it's the same thing. Okay, thank you.
Anytime you all get together, a quorum gets together to do the business of the public as a meeting.
Okay.
So that will be July 24th
Mhm.
at 7 p.m.
That gives us enough notice.
Yes.
That's 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah, 10 days.
Do we need to recommend that at this meeting, the council maybe not make any decisions until they come back to their regular meetings when all the motions are made and their regular meetings?
Well, we
I know
can't.
some councils do that.
We still have to have the public hearing.
So this is just a precursor to the public hearing, right?
This is just to kind of be able to talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's more information
Like a
gathering, and it's
more
not
work
a
session.
situation where it's like it's a legal type proceeding that.
So there'll be no motions by council.
No.
That's what I was
Not about
asking.
this.
I mean, there's no action you can take at that meeting, right? I mean, because the public hearing hasn't occurred, so you can't move to approve anything. So I mean, if you want to add it, you certainly. If you wanted to make clear that you're not going to take any action at that meeting, if that's what you want to do, that's fine.
And I don't think that's our intent. I think our intent is just to gather more information from the planning board.
So a regular meeting, in case it's sort of a work session at the meeting, would be, I'll work with George and Michelle.
And this will be the planning board's meeting. We will
Yes.
be there, so they will be, okay,
So they might have other business to discuss,
okay,
and we'll be sitting out there.
okay, yeah,
Well,
definitely.
and I don't know how you want to, like, the way that it was presented to us with Councilmember in is that there was strong feeling to go into the 2 house per acre, because we had recommended something different. So, it was like the group was trying to make sure that we were fostering what that directive was, and then we had a forester, and that was supporting that. So that kind of shut down a lot of the discussion that we had prior, when it was sent to you with a different number. So again, I mean, I think it's great to open that up, but when you come to talk or open that conversation, it needs to be what was your initial thought, and how did that morph or change, kind of thing.
Yeah, because I thought of it as a compromise. You guys wanted 30. We had initially talked about 20, so we met in the middle, and that's what, with 24. or
Well,
something.
again, it's a lot different than 40.
Yeah,
So,
you're right.
you know.
I wonder if it would be advantageous at some point to meet with a developer who does these conservation subdivisions, just to find out some input. I mean, I'd be happy to go visit one just to, if I could find one and just get some
Do you
information.
trust one?
Huh?
Do you trust him?
Well, no, of course not. But I mean, you got to go you got to try it, you know. I mean, you've got.
We could
Yeah,
probably
we're-
get a list from Vaughn and just do a tour, a drive-by. I could ask Vaughn for a list of ones, and we can take it upon ourselves to go on our own tour. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Kathy's going to help us call. Does it have to be a motion to call for a joint meeting? Or can we just call for a joint meeting?
Well, you have to make a motion to call for your special meeting, so
So it
your
would be a
special
special
meeting as a joint meeting with the planning board.
Okay, so I need somebody to motion for that.
So motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Okay, and I will let Vaughn know. And then I need, while we're on this subject, can I have a motion to call for the public hearing at our August 14th, 2023 regular scheduled council meeting regarding amending the conservation subdivision ordinance?
So motion again.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That's everybody. And then we need to appoint a planning board member because sadly Ms. Killian wants to step down to alternate, which makes me really sad.
Me too.
Real sad.
Well, it's better to allow other voices. And I'll still be here.
Thank you for not walking away completely.
Yeah, of course.
So I think if I looked at the chart correctly and we follow our procedure, not our written policy, but if we follow what we've done in the past, it would be to appoint, isn't Sandra Burke the next one?
She is.
Sandra Burke for the planning board member seat 1 with the term ending 6/30. And then we would appoint Sherry to the alternate member. Which alternate seat is open? Would that open Sandra's? Then we would, they're basically flip flop.
Right.
And Sandra's seat is number,
Number 2.
Yeah, Sandra, yeah, she is alternate seat number 2.
and her term ends.
June 30th, 25.
Thank you.
Okay. So council, I need a motion to appoint Sandra Burke to planning board member seat 1 with a term ending 6/30/2026.
So motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. And then I need a motion to appoint Sherry Killian to planning board alternate seat number 2 with a term ending 6/30/2025.
So motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. And then I also need a motion to appoint, we had John Shin, I think, resign from the Board of Adjustment. So we need to appoint the first alternate to the seat. So I need a motion to appoint William Ruley Jr. to Board of Adjustment member seat 1 with the term ending date of 6/30/2026.
So motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. And then that is it for planning board. Okay.
May I?
Sure.
You asked me what the 7,500 was for miscellaneous. Those are the invoices were not previously running through the balance sheet, so those are the invoices
Roger.
by invoice for
Roger.
reimbursements.
Okay, cool.
The
So
speed
it's-
study was conducted in 2020, and I
Pretty much
emailed him
just
and asked him
pending.
what the time frame
Pending
was,
right now, that-
and if we could do another one.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Come on up.
My engineer does work, and then she sends me the bill. I charge back Moser plus our town fee.
Okay.
I emailed the guy and
Thanks.
said, it was done in 2020, can we request another? Okay, so that leads us to the Western Union Municipal Alliance update. Let me pull those minutes up. Pretty standard, pretty usual meeting that we've had lately. While we are celebrating our 20th anniversary, Weddington has a even bigger one. 25th. Weddington has a, let's see, they are celebrating their is it 50th, 40th? They're celebrating a big, but I don't think they're having a nice party like we are. So Weddington, they have a potential religious building being built that might cause some drama in their neighborhood. Marvin is preparing for their second annual Marvin Day, and they're very excited because they're going to get a roundabout at Marvin Road and Newtown Road, and the work was supposed to start around July 10th. Let's see. They're about to replace their playground at their park. I'm sure that's not a cheap expense. Mineral Springs is getting ready to host their movie night, and they're going to have a fall festival this year. Stallings is going to have a Towns Barbecue and Brews event. And I think they just recently had some changing of hands with the Potter Road Pleasant Plains intersection. I think if I'm understanding correctly, they gave that intersection back to DOT for improvement. Waxhaw, they're constructing a new town hall, which they're pretty excited about. They just had a 4th of July parade, and they just got some grant funding for their trails. I talked about our car show and our 25th anniversary, and I also talked a little bit about National Night Out because I wanted them to know that we were planning for an October date. So I think some other towns are interested. I just wanted to stake our claim on that day. We did have a really, really nice presentation from the director of libraries for the Union County Public Libraries, Nina Chafin. She talked a lot about what has been done so far and what fundings they needed. Harris Teeter donated $250,000 for the library's early literacy center for children. The Library Association of Waxhaw donated $100,000 for an adult reading room, and that grassroots donors funded the outdoor patio. And she asked LUMA to please spread the word. They're going to start a new campaign soon where you can buy a book. You can buy a book for $25, or you can buy a shelf, or you can buy like a bookcase. And they want us to kind of push that out once they start that campaign. And everybody said they would be happy.
Is there a set price?
Yeah. I think it was like 25 and up from there. It's maybe like 100. Then we had the county manager and David Williams talk a little bit about water and sewer. The county board of commissioners did approve their budget, and the board increased water and sewer rates by 1.75% to help fund other projects, including the 12 Mile Creek expansion, Crooked Creek project, short line extension program, but they had to use cash reserves to help fund that project as well. The board is still discussing system decisions for expansion. They'll be soliciting feedback from us. One of the things they're trying to talk about is an allocation process. So if they expand this 12 Mile Creek plant and all of a sudden there are 50, I don't know the right measurements, so say there are 50 gallons of sewer available, that Waxhaw doesn't come in and take 45 gallons. That instead, you get 5, you get 5, you get, some sort of allocation process that would be fair across the municipalities and what that would look like. So we'll probably be bringing that for some discussion soon. And they are interested in another joint meeting coming up with the local legislators, the county, and us. And that was about it. It was a nice meeting.
You said that joint meeting, was there any discussion about having it at the state level as well? Let's see if we can get
Yeah, they kind of wanted everybody, especially since some resolutions had been written to a higher level of government. So. But they probably wouldn't do that meeting until they had a little more direction from the board as to how they wanted to go. And maybe some more on that allocation system. So. All right. Any questions about WUMA? Okay. The updated budget message for 2024. Let me find my notes here. Based on the recommendation of a resident, Kathy did write the budget message for this year. I don't have it, Kathy.
Would you like to see this?
Yeah. But we wanted to make it very crystal clear. The village has a couple expensive projects coming up, and we wanted to make it clear that while we did not include money for the dam remediation in this fiscal year budget, that it is out there. There's also a bit of misinformation maybe about the amount of money we have in our bank account. So we wanted to make it clear in this budget message that not only do we have the future dam repair costs, we have 50% of the overrun costs to the roundabout at Potter and Potter, or Potter 84. And then we're committed to Carolina Thread Trail expansion and maintenance, and then potential railroad extension for sidewalks, and a potential contribution that we don't know. Vaughn guessed it would be about $100,000 for the roundabout at Newtown and Cuthbertson. So we just kind of wanted to spell all of this out in the budget message, so anybody who cared, all 5 people, could read this and know that our budget might be $700,000, and we might have $2 million in the bank, but there are plans for it. It's not just sitting waiting for us to have a big party. There is a purpose for us saving money, because historically, I don't know if you knew this, historically the village is a very fiscally conservative town, and the town hall and the park was purchased with cash. No loans had to be taken out in the same fiscal year,
without ever going into debt.
So we like to not go into debt. So that's why we have some money in the bank, so we can pay to do some things that we've already committed to doing. Any questions about the budget message? We will probably try to get this spread out a little bit to the public. All right, will you pass that back, Kathy? All right, so that is the budget message. Now we're going to go on to in our fiscal year budget for 2023-24, we approved a line item for John to get a tractor. We got 3 bids. John wants, thank you for all your help with that.
And just a point, in the past we've always looked at the price without the tax included, because we get the tax back. I think the numbers here include the tax, right?
It is, but it's okay.
Right, so it seems like it might be over budget, but it isn't, because we normally compare the price before tax to the budget, not the price after tax to the budget.
And to that point, the tax is what, $1,500?
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you for that, John.
So we got the 3 bids. Even with tax, the low bidder was still less than we had budgeted, right? Including tax.
Yes.
So that quote was $22,233.89. But this week we did find out that John could get an auger for only about $400 over budget, right?
No, that includes tax.
So if we take the tax off, it won't be it'll be under budget.
And still be below budget.
Yeah, the other bid was $400 less, but it didn't have the auger in it, which is about $2,000. So basically, in this bid, we're getting the auger for $400 compared.
And we need to make quick movement on it, because if they have it in stock, they can deliver it this month with free shipping, right, or free delivery.
There's a special deal through the end of July where there's $3,000 off the manufacturer's suggested price, so that's expiring. The other thing with this vendor, he's offered free training for me on operational maintenance and free delivery to the park.
So I am asking council to approve the lowest bid quote with the addition of the auger, which is still the lowest bid quote. So we can get that ordered tomorrow and get John out and zipping around the park.
Bush is planted.
So motion.
Second, but I'd like some discussion.
Okay, discuss.
So the total price for the tractor, all attachments, and the auger, plus tax, is how much?
23,845.
Well,
You have this under item 11.
But if we take out the tax,
is that all here?
It's
So
a,
take out the tax, you see it's less than the 23 budget.
I think that was a late entry there.
Oh,
I don't.
okay.
Okay, so without tax,
It would be 2387 minus 1510.
who's got a calculator?
And does that also include the $3,000 rebate? You said something about a manufacturer's rebate?
That's factored into the price.
Okay, so that does include the rebate.
It's not a rebate, it's a price reduction for the.
That's factored in.
The cost of the tractor is $19,999. They're giving a $250 discount if you buy 2 accessories, which we are. The front loaders, it's a factory installed motor. He's getting a cart, a hitch, and an auger.
So without tax, it's $22,377.35.
3-point hitch.
Yeah, it's a power takeoff and it's got front loader installed.
Okay.
And it goes 0 to 60 in.
Do not be driving that thing on 84.
I know, right?
I want to see you at a gas station. So that's without tax, $22,377.35. If my math is right. I'm not used to working with 5-digit numbers.
So we're approving the quote with the tax, but of course we can tax that.
And our budget was how much?
23.
Oh, man.
700 below budget.
Okay.
All right, good job.
Can we get that motion?
So we have a Mike motion, a second from David, and any more discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
So let's get that thing ordered tomorrow. Then we have our contract for our deputy. Where are my notes? This year they went up not quite 6%. Last year our deputy contract was $111,948. This year it's going to be $115,913. So this is really more of an FYI, but we do have to make a motion to accept the contract.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'm second.
Now we can discuss.
I've got a question. So the $1,604.88, is that just an additional increase?
I think that is the increase in his salary and benefit cost.
Okay. And those two together add up to the $117,517.
Yes.
Okay.
If you're looking at that letter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're actually approving 17. Okay, let me write that out. So actually, we need to request one.
We can just approve the in-kind
Contract, okay.
At the price stated on the contract letter.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the contract and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. That brings us to the ARPA ordinance. So we have reallocated our ARPA funds, and I'm going to let Ms. Queen talk about how we did that.
The ordinance that we put together is basically a freestanding template. If you have it in front of you, what we did was we itemized where we received $557,626, and we spent $362. Well, we didn't spend. We claimed $362,566 of that money to go back into our general fund. That left $195,060. So if you look at the very far right column, it says Ordinance 12, and the bottom under section 4, it says 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Those are the projects for this year. This ordinance just shows you what we did in ordinance 10, and now we're doing in ordinance 12, which leaves us with 0 to recognize. I have all the backup documentation for our files and the minutes, so we're good.
So for the general public, we were granted, in ARP funds, we were granted or given $557,626. And what we did was we used that to pay salaries and law enforcement during COVID, and that allowed us to put that money back into our budget or back into our fund balance so we can use that for other needs at some point in time.
They had very strict requirements that we had to be able to spend that money, but they had an allowance of up to $10 million that if you could use $10 million on revenue, what they call revenue recognition, which a lot of that was salaries, benefits, those type of things. So with the village getting $557,000, that was pretty easy to account. So we put that money back in the general fund, and then we can spend it according to North Carolina law, not according to the ARPA regulations, which are complex.
I guess you guys know ARP's American Rescue Plan. Yeah.
We did not get quite as much as people around us, but we also didn't get hit as hard as other areas either. So, all right, any questions about the ARPA ordinance before we have a motion? So what we need is a motion to approve the resolution, right? The ordinance as presented by Ms. Queen. Ordinance number
It's the date and the number.
7/10/2023, number 12. Any discussion?
Have you got a motion?
No, sir.
Some motion.
So I have a motion from David to approve this ordinance, a second from Mike. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. That brings us to the auditor's fiscal year 23-24 letter and contract. So that's Ms. Queen again.
Okay. The auditor is required to submit an engagement letter and a contract. Her cost this year is $5,210. She'll be looking at all of our numbers, putting together a financial report in conjunction with me or in coordination with me. And there's a process that has to go to the LGC before we can, once we adopt the contract, it has to go to the LGC, the Local Government Commission. And then once her audit's complete, it's got to go back to the Local Government Commission, and then she's required to come in and do a formal report to the board. She also will bring you some standardized numbers that have to go back to the Local Government Commission. North Carolina has one of the strongest, I guess, we're one of the strongest financially because we are so close-handed to our villages, municipalities, and cities. I've never seen our debt.
Okay. So I need a motion to approve the contract with the auditor.
So motion, but I have a question.
So I need a second.
Second, but I too have a question.
All right.
Mine first, I asked first. Is this the same auditor that we had the last 2 years?
Yes, the same auditor came in. I actually, when I came on board, I looked around to see, if we could, not change up, but who else was out there and what we could do, and it's slim picking. We need to be really happy
Well,
with what she's
I was
doing.
going to go out of my way to say we've been happy with the audits, we've been happy with the format, we've been happy with the level of detail that she goes into to look through the books and make sure that everything is, nothing's slipping through the cracks.
Right.
But it's good to hear too that you looked and it was slim pickings, because we did talk about at one point that bearing it up, but we knew it was hard. So thank you for.
Well, best practice is to change it up, more than 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
But, the auditor that we used at Indian Trail, I called her, and she doesn't have the time. And I called several other people, but they don't do what they call a yellow book audit. They don't do government auditing. It's a different form of reporting, which is kind of interesting because they sort of throw it in the air, shuffle it up into a different format, and then you got to unshuffle so the public can understand it, which just, I don't know. It's crazy, but they do it. They use it fund accounting, so you have your major and minor funds. So we have 2 major funds because our revenue there's a series of percentages that you go through to determine whether a fund is a major fund or a minor fund. So your minor funds can be grouped, your major funds cannot have shown independently. So today we have 2, so she's going to take care of that for us.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Oh, you have a question.
Yeah. Well, I've got a confession.
Confession?
I've got a confession. I didn't read through all 12 or 14 pages of the proposal. I got through the first one and my eyes were going this. I did go back and research to make sure this was the same one that had performed the audit last year. I'm assuming that a lot of that's just boilerplate language. Was there anything within that stood out?
Yeah, it's based on the government accounting standard boards and how they have to look at things, and it's sort of the whole it's the legality.
Okay. So nothing unusual.
There's nothing. It's not like trying to lease property and wondering if they slip something in. She's just really writing all the boilerplates in the government.
All right. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Queen. Then that leads us to our next item. We approved in our budget, in our fiscal year 23-24 budget, the approval of an amount to expand the irrigation system at the park. Our newly planted dogwood trees are suffering, so we'd like to do it sooner than later. So what we are asking council to do is, we don't really want, let's say this right, we don't feel the need to go get 3 bids for our purchasing policy, which is over $5,000 or $1,000.
It's 1,000 get quotes. It's 5,000 to do like an RFP or an RFQ.
Well, because this is the company that put in the system and we are expanding, we would like to not have to go through that process again. So we are asking council to suspend the rules for our purchasing policy and extend the
mayor and the technician to negotiate a contract to put in the sprinkler system based on a specific scope, not to exceed our budgeted amount.
which is $9,000.
And it's going to, I spoke with him today and asked him what he thought our part, just off the top of his head, and he said 7 to 8. So when you deal with irrigation, and Mike can speak a lot more to this than I can, but when you put an irrigation system, there's a lot of switches and little nuances that have to be right for it to all work well. And I think it's best practice to have, if you've had good experiences with one provider doing this kind of complex work, he knows his work, he knows what he's done. So really what we would like to do is just, continue to contract with this provider to extend the irrigation and allow the technician and the mayor to actually, negotiate based on the scope to move forward. Not to
I toured the park with him, showed him where we need irrigation. He said he wants to draw it up to make sure he understood me right and do a drawing. He's got, he knows that system inside out. He installed it. He knows where all the wires are buried, all the pipes are buried. So I've described to him what I wanted. And he says he wants to draw it up, show me the drawing to make sure he understood me correctly. I'd feel much more comfortable going with him because he knows the system inside out.
And didn't we spend like $50,000 on that system?
It's like 30.
Was it more than that?
It was 34 or 37 the contract was. The real contract we looked at was about 37,000.
He came out a couple of days ago. The pump tripped on high temperature. He was there the same day.
Yeah, not only was he there the same day when John had a problem, John needed a part. It was a valve, I don't know, what do you call it? The guy goes, I got one on the truck here, I'll just give it to you. And it was something that if he had charged you, but he has to charge probably $100 for that part, right?
Oh, easy.
So he was like, I've got an extra one on the truck, I'll just give it to you. The guy is very easygoing, very Johnny on the spot when we have a problem, and doesn't try to nickel and dime us.
They're the ones who winterize the system, and they're the same company who bring it back up in the spring. They check it for leaks. They troubleshoot the system. They are really good.
And George has been involved too. He's also written a contract so that once the mayor sees the scope, the contract price, And in her discussions with staff, that she's comfortable, she can go ahead and approve the contract and move forward. Not to exceed, that's the motion, not to exceed that budgeted amount.
I'd like to make a motion then.
So you're going to make a motion to suspend the purchasing
Suspend the
policy
purchasing, what she said.
Suspend the purchasing policy.
and extend our contract.
Wait, suspend the purchasing policy, let's make that one motion.
Okay, to suspend the,
Suspend the purchasing policy.
I
okay,
make a motion to suspend the purchasing policy
for this item.
for this item.
We're just suspending the policy for the moment.
Just want to make it specific, just for this item.
For this one.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes. Why are we doing this? I mean, we've got a policy in place. We've got the means to water the trees. And I understand that this is a very good vendor. I understand that. But we've got a policy. We've got a system in place. Why are we not going to buy our
Because
policies?
it's not working.
What's not working?
We need more irrigation.
Well, yeah, I think
Well,
what
we,
it is, why
understood.
are we not
Understood. We
going
need
out
more.
and getting three-
Understood. We need more irrigation.
Okay.
But do we need more irrigation today? Can that irrigation not wait until we go out and again go by our policy and get the bids and then get it in place?
Well, I understand there's two parts to this question. One, do we want to put it up a bid for a bunch of different companies? And I think the focus here, the main focus here, is that this company has been the originator of the system, knows the system inside and out. If we get somebody else, they may put in a slightly different system, or we want to keep it all in the same family, if that makes more sense. As far as when to do it, I agree with you. As far as who should do it, I would like to stay with the same company.
Union Grove is so busy they can't even get to it till September.
Okay.
Well, that's going to make
The
David.
only option is to then turn around and say, let's not do the irrigation now, let's just continue hand watering,
Which is really tough on
which is,
John.
yeah, it's just tough, yeah.
It's tough.
It's not impossible, but it's tougher.
And I've got a tree dying, so come on.
I fully agree. We've been blessed by being awarded, by given 23 or 25 trees. I agree. I agree they need to be watered. And I agree that this seems to be a great trade partner for the village. My issue is we're going against the policy that has been in place for as long as the village has been here, and it's worked. Why are we going against this policy now?
Because we're suspending the policy because in this situation, it's a special circumstance that it's just the best move for us to do.
I don't know that it's the first time we've ever suspended it. Didn't we suspend it for the dam stuff? Didn't we suspend it for that contract?
That sounds right, but I honestly don't remember.
For which contract?
We if I'm remembering correctly, we suspended the policy. We did not put it out to bid. We went with the same company for the dam data analysis on top of. There were two projects, and we had to be careful of how we said, like there was project 1 and there was project 2.
They were all related, interrelated, but separate scopes of work.
I thought we went out to bid for both.
That seems right. I just don't remember the details on that. I don't remember.
I can't remember.
But it's not
exactly
just the trees, is it, John? I mean, the irrigation is for a lot more than just the trees, right?
It's the level. Right now, we have irrigation from the paved walking trail towards the amphitheatre. We built the infrastructure, the wires are there, the pipes are there, I mean, they end there. But this is to go from the paved walking trail up the hill where the trees are.
So the system was always designed to be expanded.
Correct. It originally was envisioned as irrigating everywhere, but when we had to save money, we just cut back on planting, we cut back on irrigation.
So David, I think either way we're going to expand the irrigation system. The question is, do we do it now or do we wait and do it later? Is that your concern?
Again, I understand the trees have got to be watered. I do, and I support the park completely. But we sponsored one, I can sponsor maybe 2 or 3 more. but I understand that, and I understand that again. This guy's been great to work with. My only issue is I don't want us to start setting the precedence of anything that comes up that may seem to be somewhat time sensitive. We suspend the policies that are in place. That is my only concern. That's it.
It's legitimate.
Yeah, it is legitimate, but in this heat and him having to carry buckets of water, it's a safety thing. I think it's a safety issue also.
Mayor Fuller, I think that the question isn't so much as timing because this company is very busy. But what the concern maybe the council should think about is having a piecemeal system. Right now, you've got one guy that's put it in. He did a great job. I personally had a very bad experience with someone putting in irrigation. It's complex, and I think that even though it looks pretty simple, it isn't. And I think that this park is big enough that it benefits the town just to have one provider. And this is the only reason that it's being suggested. Not so much as time is of the essence because it's not going to be put in until September anyway. So if we go about and we get quotes, and let's say we find somebody, and we're talking $9,000, 3 or 4 different legs of a system for maybe 4 different.
If I have an issue with the expansion and he's not done it, and I say, hey, can you come? Sorry, I'm not coming out to look at that.
And I think that when you run the risk of that, and if we have to expand it again and we do another quote, are we really going to go with the lowest provider and save $1,000 to have somebody completely different who does it a different way come out and try to manage the park? That's the issue, not so much the time. It is a specialized
Okay. Any further questions? Well, we have a motion and a second. So all in favor?
But I'm still voicing my concerns over breaking
With the
policy.
noted concern of breaking the policy. It's only because we love you, John.
It's not me, it's the trees.
And the trees. And the
John,
and the
let's
trees.
face it, if we don't get the irrigation system and you have to keep doing it by hand, it's going to kill you.
Well, it's already killing.
Well, that's why.
And so can we have approval for the mayor to oversee the approval of the contract up to the budgeted amount?
I make a motion that we,
For the mayor
For the mayor
to oversee in
oversee
conjunction with Park Tech,
with Park Tech.
the contract not to exceed the budgeted amount.
The contract not to exceed the budgeted amount.
You have a second? Mike, all in favor? Unanimous? Is there anything else you want from Santa Claus, Mr. Lepke?
So is this irrigation system not going to be put until September?
I'm dragging hoses around. What the party brought me out, because we were using so much water from the Union County, the part the guy brought me out is so I can get water from the pond onto the dogwood trees.
So,
the pump we installed is big enough to pump water from the pond all the way up to the parking lot. Problem is we don't have a hose to run that long. This will allow to get at least halfway
I
there.
got the hoses this week, and he came out and gave me the gizmo to tie
It's a
into
big
the
brass
existing-
valve.
But I got to drag hoses all the way up the hill.
Can the bags not be put around the trees and stuff?
Right?
The bags?
Yeah, those bags.
Those drip bags, can't that be put around and filled?
do you like those?
They're, quite honestly, they're better than hoses because they put their slow drip and they will actually get what they're supposed to be, and rather than just roll down the hill.
Do you want to look into that, Mr. Lepke?
I can look at it. We've got a solution for now with hoses and
I've seen people race. So on Saturday we could have a race of 2 lines with buckets and see who can water their side of the 25 trees the
And that'll be
fastest.
one of our sports, our activities
Yeah.
for the 25th.
Yeah, I like it.
well, the one we're losing, I think, got planted too deep. The guy who brought the dogwood trees says the number one killer of dogwoods is planting them too deep. All the others seem okay. There's one is struggling, one is, I think, they've lost.
Can we dig it up a little bit?
Okay.
No.
I think they buried it too deep when they planted it.
Well, let me know because I don't want to sell a sponsorship if the tree's dead.
You know what? You can make the sponsorship a lot cheaper if you're on selling it. $10.
George wants that tree.
Okay. All right. So we will keep moving. But let's look. That brings us to the Heritage Subdivision sewer discussion. I'm going to let Deb talk a little bit about this. I got a call. I tell y'all, all of those senior housing neighborhoods are the problems we forecasted or foretold are all coming to fruition. But I got a call from a guy in Heritage, and apparently they've had this problem for a while, but I hadn't heard about it, where they have a bad sewer smell based on how the sewer is installed, and then the county let them do it that way. I asked Deb to go to the meeting and report back, but Brian Matthews at the county did say it was a valid concern. So I'll let you.
The meeting was June 28th with Heritage residents and Coulter developers. By rough count, there was about 130 to 150 people there. It was pretty confrontational at times, with the biggest issue being the smell of sewer in the community. There was also concern about flooding and the lack of parking lot lighting around the community center, which the residents deemed very dangerous. That is in Indian Trail, the side of the development, so we don't really know whether the lights were part of the original plan or not.
Street lights?
Yeah.
I thought they were.
They were. Because we had an issue with street lights with the original subdivision because Indian Trail's ordinance said an average distance between street lights of 200 feet, where Wesley Chapel's ordinance said not to exceed 200 feet.
But was that around the community center?
Yeah,
the community
this is
center.
the parking lot, right?
Yeah, the parking lot. The community center is what they're talking about.
Oh, that I don't know.
That's an Indian Trail. Coulter denied responsibility for the sewer smell. They said the sewer smell problem was the county's responsibility, and they noted a pump station as a probable culprit to this. They told the residents to contact Public Works. They said we did contact Public Works. The county signed off on it, Coulter said, and so it's not my problem, basically, is what they were saying. We don't own the sewer. Stony Rushing was there, chair of commissioners, and he said that the county was informed that Coulter was made aware of the problem, but they couldn't tell him who they talked to and stuff like that. So Coulter said the flooding issues was because of the landscapers. And they also said that the trees on the common area were now the HOA's problem. Those on the property were not their problem anymore. So the bottom line is everybody's pointing fingers at everybody. And
Deb, was there a stormwater engineer like Bonnie there?
there was a panel full of people at the front. They were mostly Coulter people. I did not see I didn't see anybody, or I didn't hear anybody introducing themselves as an engineer of any kind or whatever.
Well, as much as I'd love to hear from Stony Rushing and some of the other politicians, unless you got letters after your name or you're an engineer or something, it's kind of a moot point.
Yeah, but he was saying, you know, you guys are saying the county, because they were going, it's the county's responsibility, it's the county, da-da-da, and he was just saying, well, wait, you know, he was basically saying, no, it's not. But
And then they were pointing at us, and I'm like, well, we don't do water and sewer. Like, we don't have a dog in this fight.
yeah, they're continuing to build more homes, and they're saying you're building more homes. This has been going on for 2 years, and you're building more homes, and you haven't fixed what's going on now. And so, the people Coulter said, whenever we finish, build out, then Wesley Chapel and Indian Trail will take care of the roads. And I introduced myself and I said, Wesley Chapel doesn't do roads. I said, that's DOT. And then Stoney spoke up and said, well, because you guys have such a low tax rate, thank you for that, he said, that we are not responsible for roads. And we don't, the POW.
We don't qualify for the POW bill.
The POW, yeah. So it's not our problem, but it will be Indian Trails. It's just Coulter's just like, not my problem. You know, we built them out, and now it's your problem. I really had a bad feeling about the way they handled it. I really did.
But if Wesley Chapel originally approved it, there was Bonnie was involved, or there was a stormwater engineer involved to some degree. And that's what we need to go back to. I mean, there's an engineer involved here, and they've signed off on this, and if their engineering was wrong, they need to be the ones to look at it again.
Yeah.
Well, it was the county who would do the sewer engineering, right? Bonnie does stormwater. So sewer would be the
Bonnie's a
county.
stormwater engineer. She's not a sewer engineer,
The
so.
problem was in Indian Trail. The problem's not on the
It's
Wesley
county.
Chapel side.
Right. So there's got to be a county public works engineer
Yeah.
that should be spearheading the technical part of this.
They kept talking about the pump station not being turned off like it was supposed to be, which I don't really, but, it was very contentious. It was very,
Well, how did they
How
leave
did
it?
that
At the end of the
happen?
meeting, what was the path forward?
say who?
At the end of the meeting, what was the path forward?
Coulter did take responsibility for a few of the things that were brought up. Like they were going to look into they were going to look into the lighting situation. They were going to see, what that looked like. They were going to talk to the landscapers and, see it. So they did take some responsibility in that way, but they're still, as far as the sewer thing, it was like nobody's taking responsibility for it.
Has the HOA taken over from the developer, or is the developer
No, he's
still?
still building out.
Well, the homeowners have the opportunity or the option of just not paying their HOA fee until this is dealt with. Which I can't directly. I mean, this is not on Wesley Chapel property.
Right.
This is all on the Indian Trail side. So, and this goes back to when this subdivision was originally proposed. I told the developer or representative of the developer, I said, you're going to have all kinds of headaches. The fact that you put in one subdivision in two separate municipalities, and you have to involve the county. And sure enough, this is exactly where they ended up.
Are we still holding bond money?
That would be a question for Vaughn.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't think we have.
I don't think we are. Because like I said, the Wesley Chapel side of this is only a very small fraction of the overall project, and I think the bond money was long gone.
So I talked to Brian Matthews about it, and he said that they did have he said that the residents had a valid concern, and what they installed the sewer in a way that technically they could by county rules, but the counties told them, hey, you're probably going to have an issue with that. But legally, they couldn't stop them from doing it that way. Well, now there's an issue. There's a smell. So Brian hopes that it won't come to legal.
It will.
But we're talking like millions of dollars to repair this. And so I asked Brian what we could do to support the Wesley Chapel residents who smell it, right? And he didn't have any idea other than passing a resolution. So I asked Indian Trail. Indian Trail was going to talk about it at their next council meeting, but I didn't know how we felt about giving the residents something they could hold on to in their hand that says, and I don't know, George, like the legal way to say it, because I don't really want to point fingers at who's responsible, because I don't know if it's the county or the developer.
Yeah.
But how do we say we support the residents? We acknowledge they have a valid problem with their sewer, and we support them in seeking remediation.
Well,
That's up to you all, I guess. There's no official action you can take, I guess,
No.
other than
No, but I think it's
other than
important
a
that-
resolution, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you can just talk about it here and it's recorded in the minutes, I guess. But otherwise, I don't know that you want to wade into it.
Well, yeah, but I think it's important to show that we support the residents in Wesley Chapel, and we know there's a problem, and even though we can't do anything, we're making a statement, which is what we can do. We're making a statement saying, this is an issue, it needs to be fixed. We recognize there's a problem, so we're watching you. To me, that's kind of what it's saying.
Again, you guys can talk about it and come up with a consensus. You can vote on a statement to make. There's all sorts of things you can do if you want.
I'm leaning more toward not a resolution, at least not at this time, because we're not talking about something that we can necessarily fix or do anything about it. I mean, it'd be like if your next door neighbor was constantly smoking pot and the smell just kept going over to your backyard.
I feel this.
There's nothing, if they're legally allowed to do it, there's nothing that you're allowed to do to resolve it. You can call the cops, but they're not going to do anything about it. So I don't think...
I just think it's the perception is bigger than reality sometimes.
Should we release a statement then, saying we support the residents?
A statement to who?
To the HOA.
To the
I don't
county?
know.
Maybe and to the HOA and just say, hey,
I thought that we already discussed that the developer had not formed the HOA yet. We're still under the developer.
Then I think they've got a board.
There's nothing stopping any of you individually from communicating with people and saying you support their cause or whatever. I mean, there's nothing that's stopping.
but as a board, as a council, I think it carries a bigger stick.
That may be true, again, but that's up to you whether or not you want to take some kind of collective action.
You sound like you're cautious about it, like you're
I just
not.
don't, I mean, again, it's up to you. I just don't like, I don't, when you don't have a dog in the fight other than the support of the council, I don't like
Exactly.
wading into stuff that's going to turn into massive litigation.
What's the target on that?
Agreed.
Yeah, but we're just leaving them out there with no.
But it's,
it's-
I mean, there's
it
no.
gets you, I mean, I can just run through all sorts of scenarios in my mind. If this does blow up into big litigation, each one of you guys getting subpoenaed for a deposition for whatever knowledge you have about the issue, which may happen whether or not you make a statement. But
They were so grateful. People came up to me afterward that we came. They thought that was just really neat that we actually showed up.
Well, maybe I can just reply back to him and say, keep us informed of future meetings, and we'll have a representative there to support you. That good?
Okay. I wish we could do more. I guess if we show up when they have these situations and kind of keep an eye on it.
All right. And then we have a review and discussion of amended bylaws for the planning board. So basically what we are doing is going through all of our policies and procedures and trying to review them, get them in one place, make sure they're up to state statute, and fix any errors. So we started with planning board. We started with Board of Adjustment. Now we're on to planning board. What we want to do is to make sure that we have a document so anybody that is new to the planning board can take this document and they can read it, and they can, a lot of it is stuff from the old one, but put in here, trying to put everything that we think they need. There is one thing we need to talk about, but I know Deb had some questions. So,
Ron's recommendation too, when you're ready to pass that down too.
and then when we get to item 9, voting, we'll discuss. So powers and duties, I'll just kind of go over it real quick. We just refer people to our ordinances, North Carolina laws, DEQ records retention, planning and development regulations. Say that alternate members shall serve in the place of absent members. We did to kind of, I can't take credit for this, but Kathy did come up with ASM, because sometimes when you're reading the minutes, it says alternates, because the chair has always been really great, even when I was on planning board, about letting the alternate members speak. But sometimes when you're reading the minutes, it's hard to tell which, if there's an alternate sitting here and an alternate out there, who voted, who didn't vote. So by calling them an alternate seating member in that meeting tells you that they sat up here, not out there. If y'all don't like it, we can change it, but we were just trying to make it clear when we are typing the minutes. And
Yeah, I
stuff.
think that's good. Alternate
Seated member.
ASM, yeah, just have
Yeah, I think that's
alternate
good.
So when you're
seating.
seated up here, you're alternate seated member, and then if the minutes say alternate Lepke talked, then we'd know he wasn't a voting member that night.
Would you put that at the bottom, that key at the bottom of the minutes? Because those reading that are not necessarily part of this would not know what that means.
Yeah, it's in the definite. It's in the.
Right, but like a
It's
joke.
typically at the top when you use an acronym like that. It's not a common acronym. You usually identify it in the beginning. Yeah. That's normal.
Okay, because if somebody, Joe Blow from the community is trying to read it, they're not gonna know what that means.
Yeah, it's in there.
They can always call the clerk's office or contact me if you're not interested.
It's just much easier to put on bottom, so.
Yeah. So rule 2 is planning board members are appointed by council. Planning board has 5 members, 3 alternates. And then it talks how where we've never actually put it in writing our procedure, but here it is in writing. Well, they have seat term ending dates. Well, we're not. Yep. Item 4. So you're set for 3 years. Your seat carries its expiration date no matter who's sitting in it. And then council will appoint midterm appointments. And then here's what we never put in writing. Alternates shall be appointed to vacant seats with the longest serving alternate given the first opportunity for first appointment and the second opportunity. And
So we've done it, we just never had it in writing.
exactly. That has been our informal procedure, but we've never written it down.
We've always, or what these reflect.
And Sherry, I'm glad you're here because this was my memory. Planning board members and alternates get $100 per meeting attended, but if you come and present, don't you get an extra $25? I think that's what it was.
Come and present.
To council.
To council.
We paid
Oh,
Susan
oh.
Moore for coming to present. Was it that month he got 125 instead of 100?
You mean present to you guys, like,
Yeah.
like member in? Well, I was doing it at one point, and then I was written off the agenda. So, you know, you got it. I would suggest you be consistent if you're gonna do it.
Good point.
Yes, that is a great point. So we can just make that a standing agenda item. Kind of like we're the standing agenda item on planning board.
So you want to add a standing agenda item that we have a board member in.
Planning board member in
I
attendance.
think what happened there was they stopped coming.
And then
Well,
you kind of have to
Well,
come.
I was then asked to do it, and then I was never, it was
You never
on the
called
agenda.
her.
I was just like, okay, no worries.
Well, you should
Sorry.
have paid anyway.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, which is fine, but, you know, just be consistent. If you want to write it in there, be consistent with the
Yeah.
other.
Excellent point. We need to, just to make sure, I'm pretty sure it was an additional 25. We need to look back and see if, maybe look at an old John Sousa paycheck from not like the last year he was on the chair, but maybe 2 years before that when he came into council meetings and see if he was paid 125. See, this is a good reason to write all this stuff down because we lost our encyclopedia. So, Deb, did you have questions about that so far?
Nope.
So 4 talks about the elections of officers. Planning board chair is appointed. Chair has a 1-year term. Vice chair, same as. Chairman runs the meeting. Village clerk serves as secretary and will write the minutes. Then there are rules of conduct we actually put in writing. Because we had the issue previously where a member was on planning board and never came to meetings. Went to like 2 in a year. So we say if any member is absent for 2 consecutive regular meetings, the chairman may direct the secretary to notify such member in writing of their absences. If they don't come to the next meeting, the planning board may vote to remove them from their seat or recommend the council remove them. Then there's conflict of interest. Deb, did you have stuff on that page?
Yeah, well, just a point of reference here. Under 2, where it says third line down, it says the remaining planning board member to be excused rather than, my contacts are blurry. They shall declare the nature of such conflict and ask to be excused. That would be recused. Is it?
No, when you recuse yourself, but you would be, I guess you could be recused by board members. Is it?
I just was.
You recuse yourself.
You're just being excused from voting, and so then you can recuse yourself or just be excused from voting. It's interchangeable. But you usually say, I recuse myself, not I excuse myself.
Right. Okay, very good. The next paragraph, neither planning board members nor alternates shall.
Hold on,
seek-
wait, pause right there. So that does mean the first one should be recused. If we're saying I recuse myself, so
Yes.
line 3, that excused should be recused. And then the excused will be down on line
Oh, you want
4.
recused on that third line, recused? Gotcha.
Recused on the third line, and then planning board says you are or are not excused. You got a thought?
Conflict of interest forms, and maybe you're getting to that. I know, I would hope that you guys would write in there that they're required. And the conflict of interest forms that we have are
Lane?
generic at best. Because some of our planning board members have past experience with developers, but in other towns. So how do you potentially source that?
But it's really only considered by the state statute. Isn't there a state statute about?
Yeah, it's basically a personal gain or sometimes the appearance of impropriety.
So I think unless it impacts that planning board member
If
financially.
you own part of the company, you own the land, you own adjacent land, and you stand to gain a lot of money if the land is sold. But, if it doesn't.
Is there an
meet the
instance of this
criteria of the
happening?
Statutes.
Really?
George says I'm right, so we're good.
I need to talk to you later then.
There's self-interest involved. So it may not be something that's currently pending, but it was based on planning, a zoning thing that came up. So,
Well, we had that in the past too with the previous chair.
right,
He's owned
correct.
a couple
That's what I'm
things
saying.
and then benefited.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Well, when we have that, though, that's why we have an attorney present, is when we do have a conflict of interest,
He's not a planning board.
then who would have a conflict of interest? Not who, but, the member? I didn't
Planning
name
board
a name.
member.
Planning board member.
If
yeah.
planning board member has a conflict of interest, she's saying, and there's no attorney present during those.
And then, if it's.
I'm just saying.
There's
If
no
you're right,
law
then
that says that
then
they
lose that part of it.
Well, councils can recuse them if everybody's uncertain, you just recuse them. It's okay.
So your concern is how,
If you want to vet the program, the process for this, I'm just saying there's an element that's not completely transparent. So,
And we have to tweak the form.
so we need to make sure we don't have in here that they have to fill out
Say that again.
we don't have in here that they have to fill out the form,
conflict of
the
interest.
annual form.
And then,
So if we just put in here that they have to fill out the form, we can still tweak the form, it would still be the form. If we had George look at it and tell us if he thinks our
That's
form.
what
Probably the reason the form is somewhat generic, I would assume, I don't know if that's.
It basically says, where do you live and do you own other property in the village?
Yeah, well, it's not specific to each thing that might come before planning board. It's not updated. I don't know if there's you could come up with something where you have, as an obligation of a planning board member, you have to complete a form like that, whatever it is, and include an obligation to update and provide any information relating to anything that's coming before a planning board that might be related. I'm just kind of reading this, but
Well, I'm just saying that there's-
but I think you're making a good point, which is a general form about where I live and the things I do entered into once a year or when you join planning board isn't going to necessarily, even if somebody's not even trying to be sneaky about it, it's not gonna trigger anything in their head. I think it's kind of what you're saying.
I am, but the other component is that, this is we're a small area, and you cross areas, and especially those that have been here a long time. So, if you've had business in another town with another developer, then I don't know if, it may not represent something specific to Westwood Chapel at the moment, but when it comes to a corner discussion and changing the zoning of a corner, then it starts to become.
Are you talking about the church?
Mhm.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Then it starts to become important to us because there's liaisons there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a difficult question, right? Because, going back to what Kathy was talking about with the North Carolina statutes to deal with actual conflict of interest. I mean, I think under the scenario you're talking about, and I don't know the details, that wouldn't prevent you all, if that person was one of you, and that matter came before you, I don't think you'd have to recuse yourself. If it's, I work with developer A in town B.
Here's your scenario.
And developer C is in Wesley Chapel doing something that developer A that I work with may eventually want to take a benefit of. That's pretty far removed from anything that would ever be
Same developer. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
This was my interpretation. Somebody on planning board, I thought it was a joke, said if we rezone the church to office institutional, then I can buy that property and make it into something else. Or if we rezone that corner to commercial, I can buy it and make it something else.
It wasn't that direct statement, but there was a direct statement made that the individual was affiliated with what happened in Sun Valley.
I don't get that part, I guess.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
Question is, should it be in the form?
right.
Regardless of what the form says, should it be in the procedures?
I think we need to say that they need to sign an annual
Conflict of interest form.
an annual conflict of interest form, and we look at what that. Maybe we can compare it to a few other municipalities and see how thorough. How does ours compare to Mineral Springs, to Marvin, our neighbors?
You might even consider saying annual or semi-annual as determined by council or something like that if you wanted to do that.
And leave it open.
Wait, I always forget. Semi-annual is more than once a year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we can add item number 2.
7 to D, maybe?
Yeah, 2D. Members are required to complete annual or semi-annual conflict of interest forms as determined by council.
we have not filed here at town hall.
And to be
Just keeping them in my house?
Huh?
Which is keeping them in my house, or?
No, but they need to be collected and maintained.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which,
They should be collected and maintained according to record retention requirement.
It's definitely a public record.
Yeah, it's definitely public record, but retention, about that, I don't know.
You have to keep it for
2
In
years
theory,
as our administrator.
that'd be longer than that.
In theory,
Certainly for as long as they are the planning board member, and then probably for some period of time after that, in the event there were a potential challenge to something that would plan.
as long as that
I don't know what
statute of
challenge-
limitation.
Yeah, I don't know what the challenge.
What about what?
Planning board would change a circumstance because they're like our recommending body anyway.
Yeah, they're not
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's probably fine to keep it for as long as they're on planning board plus a little time.
What about, our other attorney says, what about annual or change of circumstance?
Upon appointment and every year after, every 6 months.
Upon appointment, annually, and as determined by council? I don't know. So if we suspect any,
Just saying, if you add the change of circumstance on there, then let's say like Highland bought 3 properties next to me, that's a change of circumstance. So then I would have an obligation to
report.
it as opposed to waiting for you guys to tell me or waiting for the annual appointment.
Yeah.
So change of
Annual appointment and change of status, but we won't know what that is. They
right,
have to be
they
honest
won't
about
disclose it.
But if you put it in there, then they have an obligation. They don't supposedly you can, right? You'd have remedy against them,
We,
right? I think that's your question.
Yeah, I mean, then you'd have something if it were discovered. I mean, the only remedy would be if you found out about it at the time the approval was. That's the problem. Like, it's not. If you knew about it prior to whatever planning board was meeting and discussing, then you could kind of force a recusal.
kind of like we
But
need
after the
whistleblowers.
fact, at the end of the day, though, also, I mean, yeah, it's a little more. This would be a much bigger issue, I think, if it were board of adjustment. But since planning board is a recommending body as opposed to a
Legal.
decision-making body, that makes a difference. But So I don't know, under your scenario, like, I don't know if there really is no remedy after the fact other than to say, we're going to remove you from planning board. Which is a remedy, yeah. It just doesn't necessarily solve an issue with somebody maybe,
Didn't solve this
because
issue.
you can't be voting on the thing that happened.
You can't ring the bell.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that there were things that are presented to you guys. I mean, we have a different discussion, as you guys know, ex-planning board members, than council does. And we go deep, very often we'll dig deeper into certain issues before you guys get it, because you've got so many other things going on, right? So I'm just saying, you may not have all the information that has garnered or gone on in planning board when something is presented. So that's all.
And thank you for the note to be more consistent, member in attendance.
Could you add to the actual document itself, to the reporting form, that if you have any interest that may change regarding any meeting, that this needs to be filed before the meeting? So
Yeah, I guess you could
require
you can modify the language that Kathy was adding about updating it and change of circumstance, that it must be done prior to any meeting in which that would be affected by that, whatever we define that.
Okay. So we will look at that form.
I have a question.
Okay.
It's still in the conflict of interest. And this is just, again, a point of clarity for me. Neither planning board members, this is on the number 2, second paragraph, neither planning board members nor alternates shall seek to influence a decision, participate in any action, or cast a vote involving any matter that is before planning board which may result in a private benefit to themselves, their immediate relatives, or personal business interests. And my question is, okay, say I feel strongly about a zoning of my property. I'm on the planning board. I recuse myself. But as a citizen, am I losing my right to get up and say, I can't speak as a citizen?
No, you can speak as a citizen in public comment.
But it says here you can't speak.
Not as a planning board member.
Right, but if you recuse yourself, that was what I was point of clarity. Can't the member say, I recuse myself, I'm not having anything to do with this, but I'd like to give my opinion and my thoughts as a citizen?
Yeah, in that matter, you could. I wouldn't do it in a quasi-judicial proceeding, but none of these are quasi-judicial.
Okay. That was just
You don't lose, just because you recuse yourself doesn't mean you lose your rights as a citizen. But I think this is more than you asked about, but in a quasi-judicial circumstance where you would step down and step over there, if I were on the other side of that, I would argue that nothing changed between when you stepped down from being up there and stepping down, and you were having an influence on the proceedings, but that's different than legislative type proceeding that planning board's looking at.
Okay. All right. Is that all your questions in that section, Deb?
Yes, ma'am.
Then it goes to meetings. That meetings are held the fourth Monday at 7. The chairman, and I think this came from the last one. We talked about this a little bit, but it says the chairman may change the location of a regular meeting to another place conveniently located in the village with notice. A minimum notice of 48 hours is required to be provided to the village board, clerk, board secretary, members, and alternates.
That was a question I had. What are the situations when this would happen? Why do we have this in there? I mean,
Town hall AC breaks down, or there's no heat and it's freezing cold, or they have some reasons to change the location.
okay. So if it's an emergency type situation, they can change them.
Or those meetings where we know, because Weddington's had to do this, those meetings where we know this room is going to be filled and people cannot be heard. So maybe the meeting location is changed to
Oh, that makes sense.
Solid
Yeah.
Presbyterians.
We actually looked at having a meeting once at the elementary school just because we needed a bigger venue. Luckily, we had people standing in the hallways and extra seats, and we were able to squeeze them all in. But if the fire marshal had come in, we probably would have been in trouble.
Okay.
Special meetings may be called with 48 hours. Quorum is required. So this is basically all stuff from the other.
And remember, these aren't things that, because they're written, are likely to happen. It's just saying, if it does happen, these are the rules.
Rule 9 is about voting, and this is where we have a thing we need to talk about. All matters to be voted on shall be by a duly made motion and second. The chairman shall not be allowed to make or second a motion, but can vote.
I think the word other there is confusing. I think if you take the word other out, it's like the chairman shall not be allowed to make or second a motion, but otherwise can vote on all issues. But when you say all other issues, it makes it sound like you're talking about issues that are not motion or seconded. You see?
Yeah. So say the chairman shall not be allowed to make or second a motion, but may otherwise vote on other issues.
No, on just issues. On all issues.
On all issues.
Yeah, just take out the other.
You got that, Kathy? Take out
Take
the
out other code.
It's number 2 under Rule 9. Yeah, just take out the word other.
only members or alternate seating members present at a duly convened meeting are eligible to vote. A vote, blah, blah, blah. The question is, members and alternate seating members. So if you're up here, you have a duty to vote on all issues unless excused by the board. Legally, if we don't vote on a zoning matter, it's considered. Let me look at my volume notes.
It's a yes.
It's a
unless
yes
zoning.
vote.
Yes, but because planning board is a recommending body, you don't have to have it that way. So you can say the planning member abstains so that there's just not a vote. You can say the planning board member doesn't vote, so it's a yes. Or you can say, well, that's really all you can say. Vaughn's recommendation, subject to George's advice, would be that to state that a member who is present but not disqualified or excused for voting may abstain from voting, and the abstentions shall be noted in the tally of votes. So it would say Mike voted yes, Amanda voted yes, David abstained, and Deb voted no.
So what's the abstention mean then? That they just
Refused to vote.
They just didn't vote.
So so suddenly you only have 3 board members, planning board members, as opposed to, by them taking themselves out, it's not going to be a yes vote, because that's where it had
Yeah, how does that work? So say we have a tie, right? And one person says I'm not voting. Does that mean it might pass because we had 2 yeses and a no?
Wait, say that again?
When you abstain from voting, you don't want to vote. I don't want to deal with this. And so, what does that mean with that motion?
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, under the scenario you're talking about, if it's 5 people, that person will still be counted as part of whatever majority means. They just chose to abstain.
And how does that vote count?
So then what if you
So
have...
it doesn't count at all, but you still would need 3 out of 5 to be a majority. So you still need 3 out of 5s. So it's not a majority of voting members in that scenario you're talking about.
But a quorum...
Right? If they're recused, then they don't count towards the number of the people sitting.
But this is just, they don't want to do it. They
This is abstaining from the vote.
abstaining. It's not recusing. It's just like, I don't
That's
want to
what,
vote on anything.
right, that's what I'm saying. So if that person were recused, it would be a majority of 4.
But if they-
you're talking about is a majority of 5.
So if you abstain, so you have 5 people, 1 abstains, you still have to have 3 to pass it.
Right.
So you'd have to be 3
But
to 1.
the
But if it was 2-2, I think we found you would have a majority.
The chairman can vote.
Right.
So you got 2 for and 2 against, and the 5th person's abstained.
Yeah.
So the fifth person just isn't a vote, but they count towards however you calculate a majority. Is what I'm saying.
So that's close
So
enough.
there's 5 people. and
Yeah,
one-
it's not a majority if they're 2 and 2.
Right.
Right.
That motion would fail. So I think we need to, there are some times as a seated planning board member, just like a seated council
it
member.
is.
It's uncomfortable.
I don't have an opinion on what you want to do for this, preference wise. It's absolutely the law for you all that if you abstain, it's counted as a yes vote. Sorry, no vote.
No.
Yeah.
For zoning only, everything else is a yes.
Why is it different?
Yeah, now I'm
It
confused.
makes no sense.
Well, because there's, I guess, a lot more to gain from that, wouldn't you think? Like, if there's a zoning, if there's a big decision coming and everybody's mad about it and you really want it, and you know if you abstain, it's going to be a yes, and so you can get the yes vote without having your name on it.
Most parliamentary, most conditions under Robert's Rules of Order would say that an abstention is a no vote.
But that's not how it is now, right? A planning board abstention is a yes.
Right, for the reasons Kathy's talking
Right.
about. But you don't have to do it that way because you're not approving or denying something. The planning board is only.
But I think we are, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but like we are trusting these 5 people to give us advice. I want to know what all 5 of them think. I don't want them to have the easy way out.
Right.
You don't want them to have.
I want to know what they say. Yeah.
That definitely creates an easy way out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they need to man up.
Yeah. If we have to make,
As suggested by Robert's rules,
yeah, I want them to say. I would like to hear. There were times I didn't really want to say it out loud, but you have to.
So if they abstain, you want to just leave that they abstain, and it takes a majority of the rest?
No, I think
No,
they're saying
if they
don't want it,
abstain,
they don't
it's a
ask.
yes, right? Or if they abstain, it's a no. What's the right way?
same as the rest.
If they abstain, it's a no. Bless you. What is it now? They abstain, it's a no?
I have no idea.
For council.
I mean, if you abstain, I mean, we can look it up on Robert's rules, but if you abstain, my thought is that you say no.
I mean, I don't know what the current rules. For
I'm trying to remember what the current rules are because
Lovelace, he's a guy at School of Government. When I asked him, he just basically said that, the laws are for council, but the planning board being a non-decision making board can, this council can dictate how they want to make it.
So, council, what are you thinking? I've spoke mine.
If I abstain, and I have abstained in the past, it was automatically counted from the council level as a yes,
Unless it's zoning.
unless it's zoning. I would just not count it at all.
You don't want to know. You don't want to say, Sherry, I want to know your opinion. You can't abstain.
Well, no, because typically when we have things, if we have a recommendation from the planning board, one of the questions I always ask is, was it a unanimous decision?
Right.
If it is, great. If it wasn't, I want to know what from the chairman who reports to council, I want to know what the opposing view was and what the final vote was.
But you won't get that. You'll just get a 3 yeses and 2 abstains.
But then I would ask, as a council member, why did they abstain? What was their objection?
You might not know because they abstained.
I typically record in the minutes, maybe not word for word, but I say
The
2
general.
members were in favor of it, 2 members were not, and I give the reasons they were and they weren't in general or the biggest reasons, and then 1 member abstained.
Yeah.
So Mike says let them abstain. I say make them vote. David?
I don't think you can make someone.
Well, they don't get a yes. They don't get to abstain. They're going to be recorded one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, Mike's right about that. I mean, I think you have to make a decision about what they could have the ability to abstain. They just have to make a decision about
Congress
What
can
it
vote.
means.
what it means if
Yeah.
they.
Well, they'll know that their abstention doesn't mean no.
There are definitely.
It
I'm
means
just
yes or
trying
no.
to. I haven't pulled out Robert's Rules of Order or any of these voting things in quite a long time, but there's definitely situations where an abstention is just counted as an abstention. It's not counted as a vote at all.
Right. It's like Congress will vote, some congressmen will vote president without voting yea or nay. They'll just vote president.
Well, that's
That's an easy way out.
that's an easy way out. And
I think that's what Bob was recommending.
so when you normally, what are the odds if you want to abstain for something because you don't want to stick your toe in it? Are you probably most likely against the motion or for the motion?
Well, you're probably the minority in whatever the vote is. That's for sure.
I was just trying to think if usually people don't vote because everybody's negative against it. I don't know. It's just we need to make a decision on it though, and I say it should count. Definitely should count. And I just don't know if it should be negative or positive.
They got to earn that $100.
If they don't vote, they don't get paid.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I mean, I guess it could go with the what we've already got here, counted as a negative with regard to the zoning matters, and a yay as a part to other matters. Just stick with that.
No, that's council.
No, but I mean, make the same for planning board.
I mean, you could, one thing you could do here, just as a suggestion, would taking Vaughn's logic here, what he was recommending, you could also make it clear calculus of what a majority is needed. So by someone abstaining, it doesn't, like we were talking about earlier, by someone abstaining, it doesn't make it harder to pass something. It just means that that person didn't vote yes or no.
Yeah, but you've got 4 people now.
Right, it does depend on.
It does.
Yeah, it depends on how many, because a quorum
It
is
can be
not 5. A quorum can be 3.
Right.
Well, they can't, well, quorum, if they're sitting there, they're quorum. The voting doesn't matter for quorum. They're there, it's quorum. You have quorum.
Yeah,
But still, so we have 5 people here. They're all present. 1 abstains.
Yeah.
We have 2 yeses and 2 nos.
Yeah.
The motion fails.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But that, I mean, if that person, if they're abstaining, I mean, I would assume most people abstain because they would prefer to vote no, but don't want to. I mean, who knows, I guess. But I guess they're only making it harder by not voting. So if you're trying to force them into something, how do you predict what that is, what that result is? I don't know.
well, if we have a standard for what it means if you abstain, then they're responsible for their actions in doing that. They'll know if I abstain from this, then I'm voting yes or I'm voting no, and they'll have to live with that.
It's definitely more common. I misspoke or I was wrong. I mean, it's definitely more common from just quick research on Robert's Rules of Order for abstention to not to just be an abstention.
Yeah, but that's not, I don't think that's a good
I
idea.
think that's uncommon for decision-making governmental bodies in North Carolina. I don't think that's ever the case. But for Robert's Rules of Order, for general parliamentary procedure, I think it's much more common for it to be just an abstention. It just remain recorded as such.
David?
Which would logically make it a no one split case.
Right.
Because if
Right, yeah, it does turn it
pass.
into, it basically turns it into a no because you're missing that vote to approve it. I guess my point was it's not raising the level. I mean, it is, and I guess that's semantical, I guess.
So a tie is negative. A tie,
Tie means it just fails and no recommendation is going to council.
If it's a zoning
Yes,
matter.
one saying, one saying no.
And we
Then
need that
if you make it a yes, then it means you're passing 4-1, which may give you an improper, like, it makes you think the board is more supportive of it than it really is. Whereas if you had a 3-1-1, then you kind of know where the board's actually at.
But say the developer put in an application for something, we have 2 yeses, 2 nos, and an abstention. It still is going to come to council. It's not going back to planning board, and then council really has
It's just their
no.
recommendation.
We really don't know how to what to weigh.
Well, the other thing too is, do you want consistent voting regulations, for lack of a better word, for Board of Adjustment, for park, for, whatever other planning board, whatever bodies? Do you want it consistent throughout?
Yes, for my brain.
yeah, me too.
I need to remember 1 rule, not 5.
So David, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I think unless a person has a reason to recuse themselves, they need to vote.
Yep.
And I think the way that it's spelled out in number 6 is probably the best way to go about it. A negative, abstaining would be a negative in zoning matters. It'd be an affirmative in all other matters.
Okay.
Here.
Isn't that voting?
I have a different one
Oh,
on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we put Vaughn's wording in this one. So members and ASMs have a duty to vote on all issues unless excused by the board. Any member or ASM who refuses to vote without an acceptable cause as outlined under item number 7, number 2 above, shall have their vote counted as a negative with regard to zoning matters. As a rule, refusal to vote on any matter except for zoning matters shall count in the affirmative. I'm good with that.
That's what I had the first time.
Yes.
The next step.
Yeah.
Go back to the original.
Go back to the original.
That's what you had in the bond change?
That's what I had, yeah, and then,
And then I had the bond change on mine.
all right, so I'll just go back to what we had first.
and that should be universal with all boards, right? That's
Well,
what
they don't
I
have zoning matters, but, so if they don't vote, it's a yes,
Okay.
right?
Yep. That's what I think. Because they got to know if they don't vote, they still have consequences.
Alternates shall not be permitted to vote. So this, number 7, alternates shall not be permitted to vote should a member's recusal be accepted by the board. So that means if Deb gets recused because she owns that property, we're not going to pull up another member because we've already started the meeting.
Okay.
But if you are sitting up here as an alternate, you have to vote. The same rules apply. Items of business for discussion shall appear on the agenda. Other business may be added, but shall require an affirmative vote of the planning board. All meetings are open to the public. Order of business: open meeting, determine quorum, public comment, approval of the agenda, approval of minutes from previous meetings, unfinished business, new business, other new business, adjourned. And that this planning and zoning administrator is the staff liaison. So, anybody have any more questions? I thought Kathy did a good job of putting it all in one place and kind of. So now we can say, "Welcome to the planning board. Here's everything you need."
Do we have a motion to approve with those, subject to those changes?
Yep, so motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? Yes, Mike?
No, no further discussion.
Oh. All in favor? Unanimous? Okay. Look at us just doing business and taking it.
Madam Mayor, we skipped over item 8, or 8F.
Conservation subdivision?
No.
was the
Having
addition.
some dialogue about the remaining public hearing that's open from the comp plan.
I thought we called it for our meeting.
No, I'm talking about the 6 properties that were
Oh,
considered
we
to be.
did skip that one. My
Yeah,
bad. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay, David, you
Yeah,
can
the-
speak about that.
Property owner reached out on the 26th of June. So just confirming that the council voted not to change anything on our property. And we had some dialogue back and forth via text saying, no, nothing's been done on that. And he asked what our plans are to make a decision on that and to close the public hearing.
I thought you guys had invited a conversation from him, which he never came back with, right?
I don't know officially. Dev and I made that a suggestion whenever we met with the property owner, but I don't know that the council has requested that.
Hold on, y'all made the suggestion that he consider conditional rezoning, correct?
Yes.
Or conditional, if it's already zoned,
Yeah.
conditional rezoning to OI.
Yep.
The thing is, he's not going anywhere. He owns that land. We have to deal with it, and I thought he's open to partnership, to partner with the council, whether he's talking through both sides of his mouth or not. He made that statement and was looking forward to, he said, working with us in partnership. But he perceives that he's getting, what do you call it when you just stall somebody? He's getting Stonewall. Yeah, that he's getting stonewalled from our side, and so he doesn't trust. I don't think he trusts us at all. So, anyway, in the spirit of good community partnerships, I would like to see us reach out and say, "Hey, what's up? What you doing? Can we get together and sit down with you and talk? Will you come to the next meeting and talk to us? Just reach out, because as it is now, it's just silence. The crickets are going."
George, can a council say, this property is zoned OI, we are now going to make it a conditional OI property?
The village can make an application to change its zoning maps. Is that what you're asking?
No, for a specific property. Like if we had,
that's what a change to a zoning map is, right? It's a change to the designation of a property.
And we did that, right? Like we had those 5 public hearings, but we left one open.
Yeah.
Can council say, can you classify a property as conditional OI? or OI with, can you add any sort of stipulation onto the zoning?
Well, you have I would love for Vaughn to be here
Right.
since he's, this is his
Wheelhouse?
wheelhouse. But I mean, you have a conditional zoning district in your ordinance now, right? I mean, that's part of what you updated in your
160T.
zoning ordinance, right? So I thought you created a conditional district.
I don't know about
The
that.
conditional districts
No,
only
I
exist
don't think so.
with the underlying. Okay, well, we've talked about it for a long time. I thought that's what he had suggested and included in part of the updates that were recently provided. I mean, you can't create So if you don't already have a conditional district, you just can't create it just for one property.
It has to be agreed to by the property owner, right?
Well, it doesn't exist. I mean, you don't have a conditional district. You have to. Your
Well,
zoning
do we?
code has to be amended to create a conditional district. I mean, I thought that's what happened. Conditional district only exists alongside of whatever else. Conditional O, conditional B, conditional R.
It's always been very contentious with this developer. And David and I reached out and said, by right, he can do a lot of things. Let's make sure that by right he's doing something that the town's going to be able to deal with. And by trying to change something to conditional behind his back is not in the true spirit of what David and I went to.
Well, we wouldn't change it behind his back. We would open up the public hearing. We would continue the public hearing and say, we would like to make this. We want to guarantee that we have input.
Well, we can.
You don't trust us. We don't trust you.
Yeah, but I think in the spirit of fairness and openness, we've given the olive branch or leaf or whatever that is, and he took it. I think we should, if he refuses to cooperate or he refuses to work with us, then we can maybe do something with the conditional. But I think
Not if he's already got an application in for a bunch of stuff. The only saving grace is that the water and sewer is slowing everything down.
Doesn't the zoning OI define exactly what can be done there and what can't be done?
Yes.
So,
And we did tighten it up. We did tighten it up. We did tighten it up a lot. So, David, what are you recommending? That we put continuing the public hearing on our next meeting?
I'm recommending that we move forward with this in some manner, whether it be reaching out to the property owner and saying, "Hey, we're gonna decide to move all this during the month of August." I think we need to do that. I think it's only fair to the property, and he is a property owner in our village. I think it's only fair to him that we at least give him some direction as to where we're going with this, not just leave it hanging open out there.
And I think that would kind of drive him to attend the next meeting as well.
So, Vaughn, do we need to re-advertise? We know the public hearing was just continued, and we said to a later date as determined by council. So, George, not Vaughn. So, what do we need to do? Because we said it was continued until a later date. We didn't put a date on it.
Well, whenever you're going to have it, you have to set the date, advertise the hearing, whatever that's going to be. You don't necessarily have to do that right now based on what you just said.
And does that include a direct letter to the property owner?
The hearing?
Yes.
But it's continued to next.
An official letter saying that the hearing about this property that you own.
It should.
Yeah, it should.
It should.
And it goes to surrounding property owners, but there's statutes we have to follow. We have to look those up.
I just don't want to get tripped up on a technicality that we didn't do the right paperwork at the right time, and it causes more delays.
he's definitely doing something out there. He's leveling the land. He's doing stuff. He's put up a new for sale sign.
So what I need is a motion to notify the property owner and everyone else according to statute that the public hearing will be continued at our regularly scheduled August meeting.
Why don't you put it till September when people are back from vacation?
Till September when people are back from vacation. So that will be September, and that gives us more time to get out the notices. So that would be September the 11th at 7 p.m.
Is that your motion, Dave?
Sure. Yeah.
So motioned.
Second,
Any further discussion?
just want to make sure that we have the appropriate documented notification of all the surrounding properties and property owners.
We'll make sure we have that. That's in the planner's portfolio and mine too, the clerk, so we'll get it right. I'm going to make the first of that motion.
David has motioned, Mike second. All in favor? That's 3 unanimous.
And is it possible that we could meet with Vaughn and say, what are our options to work in a partnership with Pfizer?
Absolutely.
We could call a special meeting for that one if all of council wants to be there.
So,
Or we could just have Vaughn speak to it in open meeting. It's an open meeting,
Yeah.
right?
so yeah, well, I was right. You got your code 156.025 has conditional zoning districts, which can be adopted, but only accompanied with the underlying general district. So, I mean, that's how they work, right?
So it would
Some
be
people
a
call them
conditional
overlay districts,
OI.
or it's conditional OI or whatever. So you can do that, and then that changes the conditions upon which OI can be developed on a parcel. So that's what that was established for. I mean, it's really something that was developed by the legislature to allow legislative rezoning as opposed to conditional use rezoning, which are quasi-judicial.
So I can ask Vaughn in August, because August is not when we are having the public hearing, to talk to us about potential ways to partner with landowners,
Awesome.
whether that be formally or informally.
We discussed conditional zoning with him and then gave him what could be done, the incentive was, and I don't think he was for it at all. Did you get the same impression?
The impression that I got was his, let me use air quotes, his concern over the back and forth of council's decisions. Am I right on that?
Yeah.
That we may set conditions now, but by the time he got ready to build, on parcel number 5, whatever it may be, that there may be a different council in place that he would have carry through between councils. That was my understanding. That's the way I took it.
Okay. All right. So we've got a plan for that. That brings us to, did we adopt the planning board?
Is that something we didn't?
Let me look back at my notes.
Did we need to adopt it?
We did adopt the planning
We
board
did.
motions,
Okay.
subject to the changes.
It's my bedtime.
Okay.
Council comments. Who wants to go first?
I'll start. I just want your opinions on something. I've noticed that in the minutes, when we make council comments, the minutes are not recording those comments now. And in the prior times, they did record the comments. And I just wanted to know, I liked seeing that because it was important to me to know what other council members had to say, whether it was, whatever it was. And I found it interesting, and I'd like to see us continue to do that. But that's just this. I'm one person, so I wanted to know how you guys felt about it.
It is in an open public meeting, so I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, that's 3 yeses. So we'll be more specific with our public comment recordings.
Yeah, we talked and we can do that.
Thank you.
Anything else, Deb?
Yep, that's it.
Next.
I'll go next. I talked to a couple of you guys already. I get a lot of residents talk to me about their concerns. Cuthbertson Road, of course, being one of the major concerns traffic-wise, and the development going in on Cuthbertson Road down toward Lowe's hardware store. And one of the conditions of that development was that they'd be doing road improvements at Newtown and Cuthbertson, and it doesn't look like they've started anything, and that concerns a lot of the neighbors. So I will be putting a call into county, planning and zoning guys. I was trying to do it today, but I didn't get around to it. See where they stand.
That was supposed to be done while school was out, wasn't it?
While school was out, and here we are the 10th of July, and they haven't even started anything. But they are building vertically in that subdivision and making sales. So one of the conditions was that they did those road improvements, and it doesn't look like those are holding true. So.
But they did say in the WUMA meeting that they were supposed to have started. Like they finally got they finally got whatever DOT approval they needed, and they were supposed to start.
Well, like I said, I get hounded by a lot of the residents that are, especially the ones on Cuthbertson Road, that are concerned about the traffic, and that's just one of the subjects that always seems to come up. And they're looking for us for answers, and we don't have any. So I'll be looking into that a little deeper.
David?
I'll not be able to attend the August meeting, but any meetings that I attend between now and then that need reports, I'll be sure to have them into you, Kathy, before the agenda's put together.
You don't have to be here for August. Well, that's not bad.
We can get 2 more of you to drop out. We don't have to have a meeting. Is that all, Mr.
That's all.
Boyce? Okay. I just want to say, Kathy put this in my box today. We got a letter of thank you from Semper Fi with a thank you for our generous contribution of $741 on June 20th in support of the Rock and Roller Car Show. So I will pass this along. I should have given it to Pat, but she can share it with the. Yeah. So. Isn't that cool? If you want to see it, I'll put it up here, but I'm going to pass it on to Pat so she can share it. I'll see her tomorrow and I'll give it to her. And I think that's it. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, we got 35 minutes left.
No.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?